Hi students, this is Miss Whitaker. I'm recording from home. Um, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing a lesson on, see if I can, I think it's going to let me do this. I was going to try to see if I can widen the screen, but I don't think I can. But anyway, our lesson today is going to be review, but I'm going to kind of pick every day. I'm going to do a review lesson on the skills that we've learned throughout the year. I'm kind of going to focus a little bit more on what we did in the first half of the year because I know those were not really, they've kind of left our brain and we got to get it back. So anyway, today we're going to work on, I picked two things. I picked, because they kind of get mixed up sometimes, is surface area and volume. These two things get mixed up lots of times with students. They think they're the same thing. A lot of times too, because surface area will have three numbers on the picture. And so lots of times when kids see three numbers, they immediately think it's volume, because in volume, you do need three numbers as well. Surface area is when you're finding the area. Let's go to a new page. I'm just going to focus on surface area for a minute. Surface area, I'll call it surface area. You could be taking notes if you'd like on a piece of paper to help you. So when you go to do, you're going to be doing a couple things today. You're going to be watching this video. After this video, I'm going to put a link where you can practice on a website called Quizlet, not Quizlet, Quizit. And then after that, you're going to have a 10-question little it's going to be kind of like a quiz, but it's going to be like a prep work grade. So just to kind of see if you were listening and watching everything and remembering. So that's the point. Surface area is where you take the net of a shape. So for example, well, first off, let's talk about what net is. Net is when you take a shape, a 3D shape, a solid figure, and you lay it flat. So for example, if I had let's say, I'm going to try my best to draw this to make it look three-dimensional. Okay, and if I had a square pyramid like that, that's terrible. It would not look like your picture that you would see on FSA, but that's my picture. The net is when you take it and you break it apart. So I would look at I always kind of like to draw the base first, what the shape is sitting on, which is a square. And then I kind of like to write out the sides. So I know that if it has this base is a square, it's going to have something attached to each part of the base. So it has to have something attached to that, to that, to that, and that. So if I look at it, I see triangles are attached to it. So that means I'm going to have a triangle out from here, a triangle out from here, a triangle out from here, and a triangle out from here. And sometimes they do write the nets like this, but then lots of times they will write it like this. They will do the base, and then out to the side, they will write the sides. So that is the net. Then the surface area is when we find the area of each of these surfaces. Once we find the area of each of those surfaces, then we add them all together. So if I was finding the area of the square, I would do length times width. If I was finding the area of this surface, I would do 1/2 base times height, or length times width. Let me see if I can move this up. There we go. And then what you could do is at this point is if you have 4 of them, once you get this answer right here, then you can multiply that by 4. Then you would have to add up this guy and then the 4 of these all together. And then that would be your surface area. But lots of times when they present it to you, it'll look like this. They might do a rectangular prism like this. And they like to give you 3 numbers. So they might say this is 4, this is 3, and the width is 2. Okay? So lots of times kids see this and they immediately think that they want them to find the volume, but that is not the case. they want you to find the area of each of the surfaces. So you have to find the area of this surface, then the area of, if you know the cool thing is if you know the area of the front surface, then you just double it because that would be the area of the back surface. And if you find the area of the top, you just double it because that would be the area of the bottom. And then if you found the area of the side, you just double it because that would be the area of the other side. And we did have a formula that we used for this when we were teaching us back, months ago. We would use the formula 2 Lake Wales, that would be length times width. Oops, move it up a little bit. Plus 2 Winter Haven, which was the width and the height multiplied together. And we say times 2 because remember we talking about the front and the back matching and the top and the bottom matching and the 2 sides matching. So that's why we say times 2 because there's a match for each one. Plus we would say 2 Highlanders. So that would be the height and the length multiplied together. So then that was a quick little formula we used, but this formula right here only works with shapes like this. It does not work with shapes like this. Has to look like a shoebox or a rectangular prism. Okay, so that is surface area. So we're going to do a little bit of practice with this. If I asked you to find the surface area of this shape, I'm actually going to draw the net of the shape. How about that? And then you'd have to tell me the surface area. So lots of times we would do something like this. Okay, so here's my shape, and then they might do something like this. They might put like 7 here. They might say this is 3. They might say this is 4. Okay, so at this point we have to find the area of each of these surfaces. So if I know I need to find the area of this guy right here, okay, I know his width is 3, but I do not know his length. But if I see this 7 down here, which if he's 7, that means all of these are 7. So I know I can say for this guy right here, I'm going to label him A. A would be 7 times 3, which then A would equal 21. And if he's 21, then basically they're all 21. I believe. Let me see if I did this right, the way I wanted to do it. Yes, so then we would have 21 times 4, which would give me this one, this one, this one, and this one. Nope, I've done this wrong. Let me start over. Let Miss Witt start over. It's kind of early in the morning. Okay, let's start over. So I have a shoebox shape. Let's not do a shoebox. Let's do, because I'm not doing really well with this. Let's do a triangular pyramid this time. So I'm going to draw the net of a triangular pyramid. Triangular pyramid has a base of a triangle. That's why it's called triangular pyramid. And remember what I said is that if that's the base, then its sides will have to go out from the base. So it would look like this. Okay, and so I know its sides are going to be also triangles. 1, 2, 3. Now, as soon as I see triangles, I'm going to immediately be writing to myself 1 half, 1 half, 1 half, 1 half, because a triangle is half of a square or a rectangle or a parallelogram. So whatever the base is, I'm going to have to cut it, the base in half or the height in half. Or I can cut it in half at the end, but it's just easier to do it ahead of time. So if I know that this base is 4, and they like to show the height with a dotted line through it, like that, and they might say the height is 5. Okay, So I would work out 1/2. The base is 4 and the height is 5. Now, a lot of people think that dotted line means that they're cutting that triangle in half. That's not the case. That dotted line going through the middle is just showing you the height. So you can either multiply and then cut in half afterwards, or we talked about how you can cut one of these numbers in half ahead of time, which 5 I can't cut in half, so I'm going to cut half of 4. But once you do that, you want to make sure you get rid of him. Okay, so half of 4 is 2. So now I'm doing 2 times 5, which is equal to 10. So that would be the area of one triangle. But I have to do the area of each of them. So if this one is 10, then he is 10, he is 10, and he is 10. So the surface area of all the surfaces would be 40. 40 inches, 40 feet, whatever unit they're talking about. So that is surface area. Let's take a look. The next thing that the lesson is on today is volume. Let's talk about volume for a minute. Volume, now that is where we actually multiply our times our width times our height. Okay, so lots of times they like to use shapes that look like this when they're doing this kind of thing. Let me show you. Go back to it. A shape like this to give you volume. Where you can count because lots of times you can just count the squares. And sometimes they don't give you the square shape and the squares, and it'll just tell you what the length and the width and the height is. So for in this case, if I was doing volume, I needed to know the length. The length, I kind of look straight across. This is the area I'd be looking for my length right here. I always think length starts with an L and left to right starts with an L. So my length would be of this shape would be 4 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4. My width is usually how far back it goes. So it would look like it'd be in this area. How far back? So the width is 2, as you can see. You have 2 squares. 1, 2. And then your height is how tall the shape is. So if I look up, I see 1, 2. Now some people think you don't count this guy because you already used him in your width. But yes, you do. He is part of the height. So that's 3. And now you just multiply your 3 numbers together. So I usually pick 2 of them. So I start with these 2 guys. 4 times 2 is 8. And then I do 8 times 3, which would give me 24. So my volume would be 24. The other thing you need to know is volume does not, when we do units, it's not squared, it's cubic because you're multiplying 3 numbers together. When I was doing surface area, I was always just multiplying 2 numbers together to get the area of each of the surfaces. So in this case, you're multiplying 3 numbers together, so it's going to be cubic. So it might be inches. If it was inches, it would have that little 3 that represents cubic. If it was feet, it would also have that little 3. So just be prepared for that and know that volume has that little 3. One more thing. Sometimes on some of the lesson today and on the quiz, at the end, they're going to have you where they're going to give you like the volume. They'll give you the volume. The volume, they might say, is 20 inches cubed, okay? And they might give you the length, and they might say the length is 5. They might say the width is 2, and now you have to find the height. You have to find the missing, oops, let me scroll this down. You have to find the missing dimension. You could do this a couple of ways. If it was multiple choice and they give you choices, like if they had A, B, C, D, you could just plug in your choices and then multiply all 3 and see which one gives you 20. Or you could multiply the 2 that you have, the length and the width, so you would say 5 times 2, which is 10. Then take that answer, divide it into the 20, the volume. 10 goes into 20 2 times, and then that should be your missing dimension. So if I plug this in, 2, and then I try to work it out and see if I get the volume of 20. Let's see if it works. What's 5 times 2? 10. And then what's 10 times 2? 20. So that's one way you could do it. So there's two different ways. You can just plug in your choices, like I said here, and then multiply all three and see if it gives you your volume. Or you can multiply the two dimensions you have and then divide it by the volume, and that should give you your missing dimension. Anyway, so I hope this kind of cleared up a little bit the differences between surface area and volume. I'm going to send you a practice link for Quizlet after you watch this video, and then you're going to have a Google form quiz that it will pop in your answers to me. I hope you have a good afternoon today with your other classes, and remember, wash your hands frequently. All right, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.